All right. So, hey there, folks. Today we got a special guest we haven't seen in a year. I guess that has been that long, hasn't it, man? How you doing, Larry, brother?
It's crazy, man. Yeah, I'm doing great, man. How have you been?
I'm doing good, man. Doing really good. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to cover next. You know?
So, like, I don't know if you've noticed. I think I forget which YouTuber it was that I saw a clip not that long ago. Maybe it was Divinity said, and she kind of summed it up real nice. She was like, "2023 was just weird," and I think the reason that she said that is I was like, nothing really that like after a I don't know a cataclysmic trial. The trial of the century in 2022. 2023 was so bland. I mean, we had trials, we had like, legal action here and there, but it was mostly like devoid of something big. Like, as I think we were just kind of itching for something and it just never came.
How do you follow up like a nuclear bomb, like one of the trials of the century, really? I mean, I was like, okay, the Depp trial that had everything you wanted to watch, and then afterwards, I was like, well, I want to watch the fallout, but who else? Who else to turn into?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was some nuggets here and there. The Masterson retrial. There was the show business, although that lasted like 3 days. There was the what's his name? Solomon is his brother, Zachariah Anderson. There was that
Mm.
trial, which they're now appealing. I mean, so there were some things, but they don't compare. They don't hold a candle to the magnitude of attention that 2022 had. And I think the other thing is like 2022 kind of united it almost like put LawTube on the map.
Yeah,
And then in 2023, we all were just kind of like divide and conquer, just bite off whatever anyone can chew. So
yeah.
we'll see
Everybody
what
was.
2024 brings.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping with 2024 to get, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not technically law to, but a lot of, man, I had fun
We still
hanging out
accept you.
with. Yeah, woohoo. Yeah. No, man, I had a blast like covering, those 3 or 4 months that we were covering. And, I mean, that had a build up as well, like such a build up. A lot of cases, they just drop on you right now. You're finding the stuff out as it comes up in court. And like I said, I'm by the time I decide, it's like, well, it's almost over. Oh well.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Have you
Um,
kept up with the Danny Masterson stuff, like with the leftover, the attempted appeal and all of that?
no, I'm not since the verdict, I've been in the dark.
He was trying to while he's trying to appeal, he was trying to get out of jail. And the judge came in and gave a pretty scathing commentary on that.
Was he you're talking about like the appeal bond he was trying to post or
Yeah, yeah,
something?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the
Uh,
judge tore into that. It was like, whoa, man. I was reading part of the decision. I thought I'd go through all of it live one night, but the quarter to half that I read, I thought, my Lord, that judge was just like, no, no, I'm not having any of this, man.
I don't blame her.
No, no. I mean I mean, really, once you found him guilty, him saying, well, I don't pose a danger. I'm connected to the community. I'm not going to run. And she's like, you've got money. You've got a reason to run. Yeah, no way.
I mean, all he has to do is literally like board a private jet to some forgotten island that nobody knows about and just stay there, really. He's got the money, right? He's got the funds, he's got the availability. I'm sure he's got the connections, especially with his Scientology connections.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've seen some of the head of Scientology. That guy disappeared for quite a long time. They couldn't find him, not just to serve him, but people were like, "Is he still alive? Are other people around him still alive?"
Yeah. That's exactly it, man. It's crazy. It's a crazy, crazy world. So he got what he deserved. I mean, there's nothing I can say. There is nothing I can say to defend that guy. He does not deserve any defense. Like
No. When
when
did
I
did you keep up with that trial then?
well, in the beginning. So, okay, so the first trial, the one that ended in a hung jury, or Yeah, they hung on all three, I believe.
Yeah.
It was 10-2. It was like 8-4, 9-5, whatever it was, 9-3. Anyway, I was there just for closing. So I got there at the tail end. So I got to meet like some of the lawyers, like one of the lawyers for one of the plaintiffs was in the audience. So I got a chance to kind of like strike up a conversation with him. And then I met like one of the paralegals that was working on some stuff. And then I met, what was his name? Tony. And he turned out to be a little piece of work. Then I got introduced to Aaron with, growing up in Scientology, who's a fucking badass, and I love that guy.
Yep.
So I got a taste of everything, and I even exchanged a very brief word with, what was his name, the defense attorney for Masterson. I can't think of his name. I just came up to him just to kind of introduce myself. I didn't want to, bother him or impede on the case or anything crazy. And he actually told me, he's like, yeah, I was, where are you from? And I said, Louisville, Kentucky. And he was like, oh, I was in Louisville like 10 years ago on some federal case. And I'm like, no shit. He's like, yeah, it's a nice place. I'm like, okay, cool. And that was it. We just had we exchanged like 10 words together. But that whole case was just Cohen, right? Something Cohen. It just hit.
Philip Cohen, or let me look. I gotta look. I hate to
I
get it
can't
wrong.
remember.
Yeah, Philip Cohen. That's it.
Philip Cohen. You got it. So yeah, that case was just bizarre all the way around. And like I remember, I can't tell you the source, but there was this whole aura when I was when I was tweeting about coming to California. I don't think I ever talked about this actually. So this is you guys are getting an exclusive here. When I went to California and I tweeted that I'm going to California, because remember, the Johnny Depp trial just ended like 5-6 months prior. And now I'm going to California. And it's also within the realm of like Me Too. There's the RAPE allegation and all of that. So when I decided to go, there was like this aura of, oh shit, DUI guy who's supporting, clearly is a supporter of males. This was the aura. Remember, this is not reality, but this is the aura that I was told.
Right.
He is a clear supporter of males in domestic violence situations. He's clearly going to take Masterson's side and da 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 da. And then I started like making videos on Masterson, and I was shitting all over Masterson because I was like, this is a horrific case. He's clearly guilty. Like, I don't feel he has a leg to stand on and all of that. And I think that kind of shifted the perspective, and people realized, at least certain people, again, I can't mention who, they were like, wait a second. He's not just taking the side of men or women or whatever. He is taking the side that he believes in.
Right.
And I was like, that's exactly right. I'm not gonna like say things I don't believe in, but I'm not also going to say, oh, because he's a male, therefore he's innocent. That's stupid. So I don't know. Masterson was just it was apparently it allowed me to show and allowed people to see a side of me that they weren't expecting. Certain people weren't expecting, and maybe it wasn't everybody, but it was definitely some people because I heard about it.
Well, that's really the thing. First of all, people need to understand that we're all individuals out here. We're just looking at what we think is the truth, or we're trying to get to that. And yes, there is a default presumption, of, well, yeah, this person is innocent in the court of law. Let's see what's there, though. Let's see what's going to be presented. And yeah, we're going to make up our own minds.
When all you have is one data point, that was the problem. They only had the Johnny Depp trial in reference to the DUI guy. And then when Masterson came, and then there was like Weinstein, and there was another one, they realized, oh, okay, so he's not just supporting men no matter what, which is the truth. I support the truth. I support innocence. I support guilt, depending on where the evidence lies. So
yeah, before that, really, I knew you from some of I actually didn't realize until I got on a stream with you. I was like, oh yeah, this guy, because I'd seen your videos before. I'd seen your, the DUI guy content, enjoyed it, seeing police get owned that way. I was like, oh yeah, this is good stuff. But I never really pieced in Larry is the DUI guy until we got on the stream.
Yep. Yeah. What have you been up to, man? I'm very ashamed to say I have not been following your videos religiously.
Well, I've been watching the fallout. I wanted to see how the entire we had the case over, boom, it's decided. But afterwards, I wanted to see what happens, because you had this. I've never seen a PR campaign that has been waged like we saw in the aftermath, still trying to destroy somebody that the majority of the world thought that guy, he's the victim in this. He's not just presumed innocent. He didn't just prove that that he was maligned in the press. This guy is the victim. So I wanted to see what happened. I figured, we could watch that all the way through Aquaman, that last bastion of hope, and see what happened. And
Oh
I've been
God.
following that, and I've been tuning in a little bit to oh man, to the twinspiracy, Schrodinger's twins, as someone else was calling it.
I love that. That is a good summation.
Yeah, that by the way, that case looks like, besides so today, I mean, this, we haven't talked about it at all because this just came in a couple of hours ago, but today it looks like the motion to dismiss was granted on it. So I mean, he
Good.
yeah, I mean, he won. When people look at that, they're like, "Well, we wanted more." And sure, he wanted more too, but he still won. And there's still the whole sanctions discussion that has to happen.
Against her.
Yes, yeah. Well,
Right.
they haven't they haven't technically said how that'll turn out, but yeah, he was asking for sanctions. They're gonna have that discussion, and
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
curious
hoping for
exactly
it.
what'll come up in that discussion, and if it will actually, if it'll be a public discussion too.
I mean, if a motion is going to be filed and heard in open court, we're going to be privy to it more than likely, and you can get access to court records. I don't know if the hearing is going to be public or not, but something has to happen. I mean, I remember over the past, I don't know, couple of years, I've seen some of these sentences handed down to men being accused, and it's like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, life in prison. And then these women who are like caught red-handed falsifying allegations, and it's like community service, 12 months probation, 8 months in jail. And I'm like, there is a clear disconnect here.
Oh yeah, yes, very. I've been watching some of the headlines coming out of well, different sentencing, male versus female, and there's been a lot of noise about. I don't know if you saw the headlines where the lady, she ended up getting high. She ended up stabbing someone to death.
The
Stabbing,
marijuana excuse,
huh? I'm sorry.
the one that used the marijuana as an
Yeah, yeah,
excuse.
yeah.
Yeah.
108 times she stabbed him, apparently, and his dog too. But 2 years probation and 100 hours of community service.
I can't believe it. There's a dead person, and you're doing community service in exchange.
But it's not the first time. I mean, it's the dead person portion of it, but the drug excuse. I mean, we saw that a few years ago. There was a lady that apparently was on a cocaine bender. She stabbed her significant other with a bread knife, I believe it was, and the judge actually said that she was too clever to be wasted in prison, so he gave her probation for that too.
But see, okay, the sentence I don't agree with, but I can see the cocaine case as a more apt defense, because marijuana just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, unless you're experiencing complete psychosis on marijuana, which doesn't make any sense. Like cannabis, we're not going back to 1920 whatever. This is
It
not.
sounded like it, didn't it? I mean, when you read that, it was like, man, this sounds like one of those PSAs from back in the day.
Right? But cocaine, I can see. I mean, I think cocaine, what was it? Rick James, cocaine's a hell of a drug, man. Like, cocaine is a hell of a drug. You on cocaine can probably do some crazy shit, as I might imagine. Psychosis is probably a lot more prevalent because cocaine is a synthetic drug. It is a drug that is manufactured by humans. Marijuana is like it comes out of the earth. You can't. I don't know. Unless you're like in that 1% of the 1% of the 1%. I'm trying to find like a legitimate excuse, like a legitimate reason to justify, again, not the sentence, but the action. Like, let's say if truly the psychosis that occurred as a result of the ingestion of the drug, which led to the actions that led to the murder of the individual, I can see cocaine as being like there's marijuana and then long line of absolutely no drugs, no possibility of anything. And then like PCP, cocaine, like heroin, meth, crystal, like all those things. I can see that. I can see somebody going insane and like making such insane decisions. But marijuana, dude, marijuana?
So yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
you don't live through their William S. Burroughs famous quote. He was like, "Heroin is a vitamin."
I've not heard that. I've not heard that. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh my god!" Some of his quotes are hilarious, But yeah, apparently, she tried to stab herself and a bunch of other stuff. But I wonder about the precedent that sets, because going forward, you're going to see a lot more people try that excuse. Oh yeah, yeah, marijuana psychosis for sure. I mean, California, you're talking about places that have legalized that, and yet you have this standard of, well, it's dangerous. I mean, that's what they're telling us now. Someone might flip out and do God knows what on it.
What state was it in? Do
I
you
thought it
know
was
the case?
I thought it was in California, if I'm not mistaken. I thought
Yeah,
that
that a lot of dangerous precedent comes out of California. Don't even get me started.
was.
I mean, they're ahead of the curve on many things, don't get me wrong, but there are some things I'm like, I wish you didn't. Like, why? Why did you?
Well, some of it's like a head scratcher. When I look at when I look at that, and I think, what's the not just the next case, but what are 10 cases down the road? What are these going to look like? And I guess we'll find out. A lot more people though will be subscribing to that defense for sure.
Yeah, time will tell. And I think you're right. I think it opens a door to some very dangerous precedent, not precedent, but future human excuses for their behavior. I absolutely agree.
It's weird.
So,
Somebody, Nancy New super chatted and said, "Did you see Aaron from growing up in Scientology get arrested in L.A. after being assaulted on Friday?" I haven't heard anything about that.
no, this Friday, this is recent. No.
That's crazy. I'm curious. I'm gonna have to look that up. Now I haven't heard anything about that. You've been a busy person anyway, man. I was watching your exploits traveling the world. You were doing everything, not just going to trials here and there, but I mean you've been busy, man.
Yeah, God, where do I start? I tweeted about it. I tweeted about it at the end of the year, I believe, or beginning of this year. I actually went back and started to like go in my head, and I realized every single month, like January through December, there was at least one day that I was not at home. Like I was in a different state or I was in a different country, literally every single month, which is crazy. Again, it was not planned. It just happened. It was the busiest year of travel that I've ever had. And some of it was vacations, some of it was for work. I had my first symposium in February. So last February, almost exactly a year ago. That was a lot of fun. I was invited. This is actually a very unique experience. So there's this gentleman by the name of Tony Palachis. And Tony is a former police officer with the Atlanta Police Department. He's a certified drug recognition expert. Back when he used to work for the government, he got certified by their program. He's a standardized field sobriety test instructor, not just a student. He is NHTSA certified to administer to teach the what is it called? ARIDE, the Advanced Roadside Impairment Detection and Enforcement. So he's got the whole kit and caboodle. And he's got a company down in Atlanta, and he comes to a lot of these events, the National College for DUI Defense events that I'm a member of, and these events that I go to every year. And they have multiple events throughout the year. Well, anyway, so Tony, that's where I met him. I met him through that organization. And I've been trying to become a speaker to speak on whatever, cross-examination of police officers, trials, jury trials, like marketing. Those are my fortes. And Tony took a gamble on me. Tony took a shot. And he said, Larry, why don't you like forget NCDD? You need to be top dog to like, you need to have some experience, which you don't have yet. And I'm like, I know. Like he said it without saying it. Like, I know what he meant. And he's like, why don't you come to my symposium? There's going to be like, I don't know, 30, 40 lawyers in the room. And you'll get a chance to present your, give your presentation, like prepare for it. And I had like 3 months, 4 months to prepare for it and come and speak. And it's a huge risk because for him, because I could have completely bombed and people would have, of course, given Tony bad reviews like, oh, this speaker was great, this speaker was great. But Mr. Foreman, yeah, was not a huge fan of his presentation. He could have done it better. You know, you're losing points, Tony, for bringing a bad speaker to the symposium. So he took a huge risk on me. He took a huge gamble and he invited me. And I, of course, accepted and I spoke. It was in February in Savannah, Georgia last year. And it panned out. It all worked out. I did a good job according to him. And so the doors kind of opened for me and hopefully I'll have some more speaking. I didn't have any more speaking engagements last year because I didn't really apply for them. I didn't really have the desire to do it, even if I was offered. But this year I'm like wide open to it. And there is already a speaking opportunity that I have in August. So I'm looking forward to that. But that was like the big thing that kind of set the tone, I think, for 2023 for me.
I thought that keeping up with the travel and the I'm going to call it the girlfriend experiment. Those two things on Twitter have actually been fun to watch too.
Oh God, that one. I wish, like, if you would have told me, like, Larry, I have a great idea for you, and this is gonna work, or whatever, I'd be like, you're full of shit, you know. I just speak from the heart. I speak what I feel, and what I feel, I just share. So it's whatever, you know.
I mean, it's been fun to watch, though. I mean, again, it's your life there. I know some moments of it, you're like, yeah, probably not the way I would describe it as fun, but it's still interesting. And again, you bring your flavor to it, which makes it a lot of fun to watch.
Giving the internet that much power is like the way I've been analogizing it, and I apologize, this is graphic. It's like I took my nutsack and I put it on a pedestal, and then I took a machete and I gave it to the internet and I said, do with this what you will. And the internet is basically standing there with the machete and they're like, like, really? We could like, and now you get to decide, do I chop or do I not chop? And when you give the internet that much power, like, I guess magic happens. I don't know. We shall see.
Magic happens. Yeah, some of them are like, well, maybe not a machete, but a hammer for sure.
Pick your weapon of choice, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I enjoyed watching your trip. I mean, you went everywhere, man. Can you tell us some of that?
Sure. So are you talking about the latest trip to Europe?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, as most great things, this was not really planned. I just had like a time frame where I knew I was going to be in Europe and I decided to go. So I went at the end of August, beginning of September. And my first stop was actually Branca's idea, the law of self-defense, or as I like to call him, I used to call him Free Book, because he always had the link in his name, and it was like his link / Free Book. So I didn't know his name at the time, so I just called him Free Book.
Free Book. I'm gonna start calling him that. Free Book. What's up, Free Book?
He will know. He will know what you mean too. So he was like, I was debating if I should go back to Italy, and Branca was like, well, why don't you go to Warsaw in Poland or something? And I'm like, why the fuck would I go to Warsaw? Like, I have nothing there. But I said, fine, whatever. I've never been. Let's make it an adventure. And so I went to Warsaw. That was my first stop. I spent 2 weeks there. And during those 2 weeks, I met a tour guide. His name is Artur. He did one of my tours throughout Warsaw, and he suggested, why don't we do like a Euro trip? And I was not his first customer. He's done it before. And so we went on this trip. We covered 10 countries and 30 cities in 2 weeks.
Wow, man, that's a blitz right there, man.
No kidding. It was literally a blitz adventure. That's a good way to put it. And we started in Poland, naturally. We first went north, then we went south, and we stopped. We basically made pit stops at like all the famous castles, like the Malbork Castle in Poland, which is the largest castle in the world. I have to be careful. It's not in Europe. I thought at first we talked about it, and it was like it's the biggest castle in Europe. No, it's actually the largest castle in the world. Then there was the Orava Castle, where they filmed the 1922 Nosferatu horror film.
Mhm.
We went to Vienna, Schönbrunn Castle. Then there was the Innsbruck Castle, also in Austria. The Neuschwanstein and the Hohenschwangau. I love those two words, by the way. Castles in Germany. I mean, we literally traversed, like, we went almost all the way around Germany with the exception of that one stop. And we traversed all the way from Poland into Amsterdam. So we went through Bruges in Belgium. We went through Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, Switzerland. I mean, it was just fantastic. France. I got to experience so much culture in such a condensed period of time that some people on Twitter actually called me out, and I'm glad that they did, because they're like, this trip feels a little too rushed because you were in Austria yesterday or whatever, like 3 days ago, and now you're in Luxembourg, and these two are like 2,000 miles apart. And they're not wrong, or 2,000 kilometers apart, and they're not wrong. The whole point was to cover as much ground in the shortest amount of time possible because our time together was limited.
Mhm.
And then when I later, like this year, next year, whenever, I can come back and be like, okay, I hated this place, or I didn't enjoy this place as much. I really love this place, and go and pick and choose. And you can explore now in depth certain cities, certain locations, certain countries, etc. So it was a very eye-opening experience, especially being, I consider myself a European since I grew up overseas until my bar mitzvah at 13. It was just really, really cool. And I wish everybody could do it, but it was very expensive. It was very expensive.
I can only imagine. That's actually an interesting way to do it, though, to be like, "Yeah, I went, I experienced everything, and then later on, I know exactly what I wanna do." That's a good way to do it.
I think so.
That's interesting. So you grew up in Europe until 13. How the hell did you end up in Kentucky?
Should ask my parents.
I mean, when I think of any place there, I'm from Tennessee, so I mean we're next door kind of like that. And I think, Kentucky is as far from Europe as pretty much you can get.
It's the long and short of it is my parents wanted to buy, my dad, not really my mom, but she kind of came along for the ride. My dad wanted to buy a horse farm, horse ranch, and train thoroughbreds, which we did for about a decade, just over a decade. And we sold that farm in 2015, 2016. I want to say it was 2015, and moved to the city. And we've been here ever since. So the original plan was race horses, become super wealthy. That never happened. So after we sold that, and we stayed in Kentucky because I already had my education here. I already had my business. So it didn't make any sense to like go anywhere else.
So the new plan is be a lawyer and get super filthy rich. That's awesome.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. No, I mean, when I think, when I heard Larry, he's from Kentucky. He resides there. I was like, Kentucky. Like I would never, of any place, I was like, no, not Kentucky. No way. I would never pegged you from there.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't have the southern accent. I have the northern accent. Everybody always tells me that's because well, first of all, most people, I don't know if they know this. I think they know this by now. I don't know. English is my third language. My first language is Russian. Then I learned Hebrew, and English was third. I had like a private tutor when I was like 4. So I I don't know how I picked up the American accent. It must have been I was watching like Family Matters and Married with Children and all these American shows, and I guess my ear picked it up. So now I'm able to like because I think my original teacher, I mean, I was like 4 and 5, but I think she was British. So like the first iteration of English that I learned was like English, like British English, not American English.
Hmm.
And the accent I think was British. I was too young. I was too little. I don't remember.
Yeah, see, yours
But
strike me as a northern accent. It's hard to pin down. Like, where the hell is that from, you know?
I created it. I literally manufactured what you're hearing years and years and years ago, and it just stuck.
Do you, in all your travels, does anybody recognize you from your time on the big screen? I mean, you were in everybody's living room for a hot minute.
The documentary
Yeah, and,
on
well, I mean,
Netflix,
your time at the trial as well, man. You have the meme heard round the world. You know?
the meme that tore LawTube apart.
Oh, Lord. What a moment there. Of all things, I never thought that would be the shot to the heart, you know?
I mean, sure, here and there I'll get recognized. I don't go out often enough to really be in the limelight. It's a weird feeling. I'll be honest with you. It's a really weird feeling, but I don't anticipate anybody to, especially without a suit. Most people don't even recognize me from my own commercials. Like I had to get tint removed from some windows on a car, and the dude was like, I spent an hour and a half with him. Okay, an hour and a half. We're talking and we're chatting back and forth. And then I go, yeah, oh, by the way, as I'm leaving, I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm a lawyer in case you ever need any assistance, any services. Here's my card. See you later. And right as I'm like, see you latering him, he's like, wait a minute, you're the guy from that commercial on the thing. And I'm like, he didn't recognize me at all.
See, I don't even have any of those problems. Well, every now and then, like maybe in Tennessee, I'll be like, "Hey there, what's up?" Somebody be like, "I know that voice." Actually, they recognize my kid's voice with me talking back and forth more than that. But you know, I don't have that problem. Talking pickle guy? No, I don't know that guy.
Yeah, because you don't show your face clearly. So, most people don't know what you look like.
Yeah, it kind of it kind of helps a little bit. One day maybe, but I don't know. I got into this. The whole idea wasn't actually to protect or to add anonymity. It was just to get people to pay attention to what I was saying. You know, if I have an avatar that never moves, like if you're listening to something, I mean, what else are you paying attention to? You're paying attention to the graphic that I put up, and hopefully you're paying attention to what I'm saying.
That's interesting. I actually never thought about that. There might be some psychology behind it, but it looks like it's been working out for you.
Yeah, you know, well, sometimes I think, man, well, it'd be easier, you know, because YouTube doesn't like it if there's not something to watch. You know how people are. People are like, oh
Sure.
man, something to stare at, something to watch. But yeah, it works out pretty good. I'm happy with it. You know, I don't know, man. Like I said, there's so many people though. Everything links back to one trial. Like when all the people I know online, again, like yourself and everything else, it feels like everything links back to that specific time period.
I couldn't agree more. Anytime there's a conversation that links back to like where I saw you for the first time or
Mhm.
it's always, oh yeah, the Depp trial, always the Depp trial.
What do you think about the after? Did you keep up with the aftermath to that pretty well? I mean, going into because it's been going on a while. You know, were you surprised by the way the aftermath was perceived? Were you not surprised? I mean, again, the PR push by itself, it did surprise me somewhat. I did expect some doubling down, but I kind of expected them to drop it, you know, and to move on and do something else. I didn't expect them to hold on to it for a year and a half.
Are you talking about the appeal or are you talking about the Amber stands on Twitter?
It really not even the stands. I mean, you know, what I was more surprised by was the push in the media, like just the what looked like a continual PR push. And I wasn't surprised by them trying that. What I was surprised by was how hard the media just latched on and continued to push it.
Well, to be completely honest, maybe you've been following it a lot closer than I have. So, okay, let me give you my perspective from my point of view.
Okay.
After the appeal settled, which was like tail end of 2022, I believe, there was this fairly short period of time when we were talking about on my channel. I was talking about, and some other, I think Andrea Burkhardt covered it a little bit. Laura B covered it. We were talking about the New York Marine and Travelers case, and the pinnacle of that case was when one of the lawyers who used to work for uh, New York Marine shifted over to Travelers, and we caught it red-handed, or they caught it red-handed, and I made a video about it months ago. This was like maybe February or March. It was clear unethical behavior. He never disclosed the fact that he was working for the other fucking side. Then he knew information, and there was no Chinese wall between them. That is the most horrific part of this whole ordeal on the insurance cases in California between Amber and her insurance firms. That was like the pinnacle. That was like the height of showing of the length of unethical behavior that her lawyers are willing to go to in order to get the best possible resolution for her case. There is nothing more disgusting, despicable, and disbarable than a lawyer saying like, I know nothing, I know see nothing. Oh yeah, by the way, so when I was working for them, this is what I know, this is what I've done, this is what I have. This, like, are you fucking kidding me? And you're gonna argue like, no, of course I haven't shared. Bullshit. I don't believe you. The fact that it is possible means it's probably has been done. And you just saying like, no, my hands are tied, I'm sorry, I've never done anything, doesn't cut it. And it didn't cut it for the judge. The judge mandated that that lawyer had to recuse themselves from the case. And I think, excuse me, not the lawyer. What am I saying? The whole firm had to go. They had to basically, she had to fire and replace firms. It was disgusting. Like I said, completely disgusting. So that was like the pinnacle of it. And then it was moving towards trial, and it was moving very slow. His appeals move very, very slow. It takes like months to get all the paperwork back and forth and all that. And there's lots of like motions to dismiss, and there's motion to this, motion to that. And eventually they settled as I saw coming. I mean, I knew there's no fucking way this thing is going to go to trial. No insurance company in wants that kind of attention on Amber's side, on either side, really. And
Yeah,
so they
just hit
said
that. They just hit that motion to dismiss with prejudice. You know, on the I think it came in on the 23rd.
so I'm glad you bring that up, because I stopped following it. I thought it was over in like November or October, November last year. And then Laura B mentioned something on her Twitter, and I'm like, what do you mean motion to dismiss? What are you talking about? What is still alive? What is there left to litigate? So something is still brewing. I'm probably going to do a video on it once I sink my teeth into it. I just haven't had time in the past couple of weeks when this has all been unfolding. And so we'll see. I mean, I'll do a deep dive. So those of you who are not subscribed to my channel yet, go subscribe if you want to keep being informed on what is happening with Amber's appeals and the aftermath. Because I'm in the dark. I only know bits and pieces.
Yeah, because that motion to settle, I think actually, you're right. It came up. There was discussion about it in September, and then again by October, November, we thought everything was done. So seeing that come up, you know, the motion the order to dismiss with prejudice, that kind of, especially a day ago, I thought, man, everything with her is done. You know, everything,
Same.
career, everything. Well, I don't know if you kept up with the Aquaman travesty. You know, Aquaman 2. What a mess, man. What a mess.
Empty theaters. That's
Yeah.
that's like the theme of Aquaman.
Well, apparently, I saw somebody else talking about this and putting up different movies to prove this point. Movies with a water theme do very well in specific foreign markets, China, you know, other major hitters out there. So they had a lot of, you know, all of their funding comes from overseas market. But still, when you combine all of that in, they didn't even break $400 million. I mean, when you have a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and you condense it down to 400 million, and they've been trying to spin that as a success. I'm like, no, that's bad. That's really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the numbers. You've been following the numbers, so tell me what is the most recent chatter on the Warner Brothers collapse of Aquaman 2?
I'll tell you the exact numbers for today. Give me 1 second, because just give me 1 minute. I'll pull up I have a specific site I like. So domestically, it ends up pulling right now $115 million. Now, I noticed something new with the box office numbers. They give you they give you a between estimate, and the between estimates on this are so weird. Like, there's something weird about this, because when you look at the scope here, let me actually pull this up while we're talking about, so you can just see what I'm saying here, because this is so bizarre. There's two things in here. I think we'll get corrected numbers from this. So when you look at it, like, you have your 115 million. Well, you notice their estimate comes from somewhere between 66 million and 100 million. Wait a minute, where'd you get 115? That doesn't fall into
Yeah.
your, that's well beyond the scope. And then your international markets get even weirder, because you have about 80 territories that this movie
Mhm.
pops up. Okay. Well, when you go through, they only report on the major ones. So they have a little category. I call it the trust me, bro. The rest of the world, somewhere $90 million came from. Where exactly did that come from? Don't have any idea. But hey, trust me, they made that much money. But even with that, you're talking, they didn't break $400 million compared to a franchise, again, at $1.132 billion for the first one. Yeah, that's
I know where that 90 million came from. That's probably Elon Musk just buying random tickets in weird countries. He's like, Nigeria, yeah, then we have 98 tickets here, and
well, their box, I mean, it's terrible, man. When you look at, like, they break it down for day to days and everything, and
oh
but
wow.
yeah, I mean, it's like only 2 days break 10 million bucks. And then you have 2 other days that get close, they break 8 million. So only 4 days go above $8 million, and the rest of them, I mean, by the time only 4 weeks, you get 4 weeks into it, and it's already down. It just went to streaming yesterday, but in the last
Mm.
3 days, you're barely breaking 250 million as an average. That's bad. Or 250,000. I said 250 million. 250,000 rather.
Yeah.
That's bad money, especially when you're talking 2,423 theaters that you're still in.
You know what I'm curious about?
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever have you ever done a comparative analysis to like what were some recent flops? Blue Beetle, Black Adam. I'm
So
wondering like how those movies did compared to like Aquaman.
it made more money than it just now outperformed Black Adam. It did make more money than The Flash. It made more money than, of course, Blue Beetle. You would hope it would outperform. Like Blue Beetle is. I don't even know why they made that movie. Just to be honest, because nobody knows what the heck Blue Beetle is. People who collect comic books or something, they may know, of course, but audiences, they're not going to know who that is. It outperformed the Marvels and other, but the reason that it outperformed that was because of the international market. In the US, you're talking about numbers that came in at about 1/3 of the first movie. 115 million. That is right at the bottom of the projections for this movie.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's performing on pace with its lowest possible predictions is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah. Yeah, and, they've been trying to of course, media has been trying to push it as a win. They're like, "Well, it outperformed all of the 2022 DC movies together." And I was like, "Yeah, they only had a couple that actually did,
The
that
Flash
actually came out." Yeah.
with Ezra Miller, who was in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Batman? No. Was there a Batman in 2022?
You had the blue what the wait, I'd have to look up all the movies that came out for the
Yeah, I
year.
I don't
Yeah.
remember.
But they had, they, like I said, they've been talking about Black Adam. That was the big hitter right now. They're like, well, it's passing that, and it's only done it in 4 weeks. Yeah, if they had any faith in this movie, they would have kept it in the theaters for longer. But I mean, they took it out. The minimal window that you have is a month, and they took it out right on a month. And not only that, they held on. So the streaming rights for the original Aquaman, they were holding on to it for a hot minute. They sold all the streaming rights for everything else to Netflix, but they were holding on to Aquaman. Then when this movie comes out, 4 days into its release, they're like, "Hey, Netflix, you want to buy Aquaman?" So
We're not doing too hot. We need money.
yeah, I mean that's pretty bad. Zaslav went from being perceived as the hero that's going to reinvigorate Warner Brothers to, man, maybe we can write off a few of these movies as tax losses. Let's get it in by the end of the year, hopefully.
That's crazy. Well, look, when you don't listen to the people, and again, I know what people are going to say. I know the chat's going to be like, well, they owe it to Elon Musk because he threatened and all that. I don't know where they got this information. If it's true, then God bless you. Taking Amber Heard out of the movie is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
For those not following, because I just realized I should probably clarify. But they chose not to, despite whatever threats or warnings or whatevers, or maybe it was just their own personal decision. They said, fuck it, whatever. Let's see what happens. Because she has been trending on Twitter like every single bloody day since the goddamn trial. Maybe her reputation is not so bad. Oopsie daisy, we were proven wrong. And now we have to deal with the consequences. So I don't know what their gamble was.
Well, it used to be the scandal, scandal. All news is good news. That used to be the thinking. Any scandal will sell a movie. We can get someone in there. Yeah, not so much anymore. Not so much. When I never saw any proof besides, so Variety's the one that actually said that Elon wrote this scorched earth letter. They just came out with it. They said, we have a source that said that. Well, I tried to follow up, seeing if I could find any source in Warner Brothers. Now, of course, Warner Brothers, to be fair, they changed out all leadership by now. So it's harder to find a source that can verify something. But then again, there are people that, they don't feel very good about Warner Brothers. So they'd tell you a little bit more, but still, I could not find one source that could verify that.
Mm-hmm. Sus, very sus.
Yeah, I don't believe it. I could see Elon Musk doing that, but I don't believe that even if that happened, I don't think Warner Brothers leadership would have caved just to Elon Musk making a demand.
And hold on, back up. What's the purpose of Elon doing it in the first place? Because she has something on him, right? So it's kind of like it's a chain reaction, right? Because allegedly Una is his baby. And so in order to protect Amber, Elon goes out of his way to say to Warner Brothers, do not take her out of the movie. And then they don't take her out of the movie. And then the movie premieres. Like, you see the chain, right? Is that what it is? Or what am I missing here? Where's the missing link?
The biographer, he had that biography come out not too long ago. And they dedicated, I don't want to call it a chapter. They dedicated a sub-chapter to the whole Amber Heard thing. And after that, Elon, the way they wrote it up, they made Elon devastated by the aftermath of that relationship. It's kind of interesting. He's devastated, but he moves on from person to person to person. But still, that's the way they presented that. And either way, you go with there's something that she has on him, or he's still trying to win her back. Either way that you look at that. I mean, really, again, it's hard for me, like seeing his ego on display. We've seen it so many times, him going after Disney and everything else. Again, I could see a visceral reaction, but I don't see him going to bat for this person that scorned him the way that they wrote it up. And with blackmail material, I mean, perhaps, but I would think I could find at least one source that could verify that.
Dude, that's exactly how I feel about it. There's the only way I can describe it is just like you just said, all news is good news, or all scandals are all publicity is good publicity. There we go. I think that's the phrase I was looking for. All publicity is good publicity. Warner Brothers wanted to test that theory on her, and they realized, oh, we found an exception. Maybe That is a real possibility. That is the only theory that I subscribe to as to why they kept her in.
Well, for the longest time, they shot the idea that Jason Momoa and James Wan, they backed her. But then you find out before and I mean, maybe that happened, but you get the feeling looking at a lot of the stuff that happened behind the scenes. First you have Momoa ends up following Depp throughout the trial, liking stuff there. Then, you have those therapy notes that came out where she was like, yeah, he's a drunk. He's dressing like Johnny Depp. They're all verbally berating me. Nobody liked me but Zack Schneider. They all wanted to be fired. So it doesn't really fit up, especially with her. So if you look at her timeline with those therapy notes, what she's saying is, as far back as the Justice League movie, he wanted Amber Heard fired. So there's something there's something wrong in that relationship. There's something, if you go back and you look at, you even look at press junkets from the original Aquaman, and you look at them under a new light, like, hey, there's a problem. It does look like maybe there was a problem. Things look very suspect. So I don't really buy into Jason Momoa trying to save her. Now, James Wan seems like a go along to get along guy. So if somebody was like, hey, let's bring her back, I could see him being like, yeah, sure, whatever. But I don't know. Maybe it was a corporate decision. Maybe she does have some blackmail material on somebody. Not really sure.
That is the alternative. Yeah. So I take it back. You're right. That is the alternative theory I would agree with. Either blackmail or they wanted to test out all publicity is good publicity.
I mean, when you saw her name, and especially with the press, maybe maybe these companies did overestimate how much power the press has, because we're really seeing, right now. I don't know. Did you see the Taylor? I'm going to do a video for this for tomorrow. But did you see that Taylor Lorenz video where she's kind of throwing a fit because the media is dying right now?
No, is this recent?
Yeah, just like a day or so ago.
Tell me about it.
Yeah,
Tell us about it.
well, we have all these layoffs coming up in mainstream in all the mainstream press. We're talking about
Good
massive layoffs. Yeah.
Let me just pause right there and say good about fucking time. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I mean all these people, all the major players that everybody pretty much universally despises. Everyone from the Taylor Lorenzes to the Cat 10 barges, they're all throwing fits about it. And Taylor Lorenz did like a 4-minute TikTok. Like, oh my God, what's going on? It's terrible. And then yeah, that's what I said. And then 10 Barge came out today. Let me see if I can find that, because she's like, don't blame us when you can't get real media coverage on stuff. Like, we couldn't get it before. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're the one who ruined it, and now you're crying wolf. Like, get out of here.
She said, Cat Timbarge said, this was from today. People cheer on media layoffs, but don't come crying when your local AI fake news bots start falsely reporting you were arrested for something and you got fired, and there's no real journalists left to cover your plight, or when there's local disaster or corruption. And I thought, these are the people that back false accusations. These are the people that created movements that we pretty much, I feel like, again, questing for truth. Like you were talking about, just trying to figure out what's there and bring it to audiences. Yeah, that's really what birthed that. So these people, it's amazing that they want to present themselves as some arbiter of truth.
They are rats on a burning and sinking ship. That's how I see it. And they're trying in desperation to do everything they can to stop the bleeding, and they're hemorrhaging. So you can't stop it. You can't stop the natural course of events. The only thing you can try to do is slow it down. But it's interesting, actually. I haven't thought about this recently, but with that tweet and with recent events that you're saying, it seems like maybe there is a shift, and private journalism is going to continue being on the rise before that gets corrupted, right? I mean, as anything that you eventually starts gaining power, there achieves a certain point where corruption starts to take over, because you rise to the level of power that you realize no one can really stop you. And that's the problem. Yes, you can be stopped, but you are at a point where you feel like you can't. And therefore, you overstep your boundaries. And then slowly but surely, you know, there's like, I think there's a circular pattern, as with pretty much anything. And journalism is finally reaching its death by a thousand razors. And good, that will give birth to something new, like private journalism, like I mentioned, and some other things.
The problem is like platform. Like, okay, I really started taking notice of YouTube selling out the you stream yourself, you stream you. They started. There's a lot of money in companies like for example, we saw it with the Depp trial is a very good example. We saw them sell the top slot to Law and Crime. They sold that top distinction for I forget how many millions of dollars. But that's why a lot of us people would find you anyway. But when you look at the numbers that like you or I can pull in versus a Law and Crime, they were pulling in hundreds of thousands of viewers. But and
Yeah.
then now, so I saw this with when negative press comes up about certain people. Brie Larson was the first person I saw it. And again, people can like or dislike Brie Larson. That's not the point to this. YouTube added a piece of code into their algorithm called trusted sourcing. And they give that to mainstream media or they give that to late night shows. I mean, they even give it to, they give it to like Jimmy Kimmel and people like that, but we're not included. That's why Alec Baldwin, for example, you'll notice the early videos that people did on Alec Baldwin, they blew up. They're all over. Now, when you go and search Alec Baldwin for any news, you don't find YouTubers. You find localized news or you find places like the Washington Post. They pay for those places.
Yep. I mean, there it is. That is literally corruption. The YouTube picking and choosing. We can trust you and we don't trust you. And now what happens when that entity that is now officially trusted by YouTube starts spreading misinformation or inaccurate information or hiding the ball or not reporting the truth? Now you are literally you're spearheading, YouTube meaning spearheading false information. I mean, it's just so elementary, but you have to go through it. And this is what I'm a firm believer in. What was that quote from The Dark Knight? I'm an agent of chaos, right? I like chaos because chaos allows for beautiful things to be born out of it. But what sucks is that first you have to suffer. And who suffers? The public, the people, us. Because we are being fed and we don't even know. Like we were at the point, and I think it's shifting. I could be wrong. I don't know. Please, chat, correct me. I want to hear what you have to say because you are the people. We are the people. You tell me. Like, do you feel that there is like a shift in this whole, because we were in this era, especially since Trump, of fake news, false news, misinformation, disinformation.
Mhm.
Are we shifting towards like, oh, we have some reliable sources, like we can go to this source, and if I listen to them, I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to give it too much credit, but like I have 60% confidence that this is true, not like 10 or 5 that we've been experiencing with mainstream media, or close to 0. Like, do you all feel that there's a shift in the cosmos where there are certain sources you can go to and be like, I think this is a reliable source? Like, I'm very curious what people have to say about this.
I think it's very clear when you look at case coverage. Like for example, that Clayton Echard we were talking about, Schrodinger's twins there. Okay.
Mhm.
The guy who ended up covering that first, Dave Neal, that guy, he was the tip of the spear on it. No media networks, they picked up her version of it, talking about, of course, this salacious stuff about that. But he went to every place out there, including Rolling Stone. He brought up. I actually talked to him for a couple of hours, and he talked about the struggle with that. He presented all of this court document. He laid it all out, and they wouldn't cover it at all. So yeah, I think people notice that. I think people notice not just the PR push, but I think they notice the social and political narratives. Like you were saying, there were political narratives. People got tired of the fake news with that. The social narratives, again, that's the false accusations were born out of it, and the social narratives too. Hey, Larry, he defends men no matter what. I mean, again, those are narratives that aren't true, and people get sick of that stuff. I think personally.
Yeah. Yeah. People are saying, I'm just reading the chat as you were speaking. It seems like it's a mixed reaction. Some people are saying yes, they do. Some people are saying yes, it takes time. Some people are saying YouTube only, which I find very interesting. There's a lot of channels. There are a lot of channels out there that are just like, maybe they're not reporting on the news or anything, but they do like little experiments. Or I don't know if you ever heard of this channel. It's called what is it? I can't remember the name of it. It's that presser channel where they just take objects and they put them under high pressure until they explode, basically, or collapse. I mean, it's just little fun videos that people are experimenting with, things that people normally would not have access to. Only like a handful of people have access to one of those, presser machines. I can't think of the name of it for the life of me right now. But anyway, just a silly example, like Mr. Beast is another example, which you can have an opinion on Mr. Beast either way. I don't have an opinion about him. I have heard so many different things, but he makes fun videos. At the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. Does he make videos that are entertaining, captivating, they're catching people's eye? 100%, no question. If you were to ask me who is the most popular YouTuber, like 5 years ago, I would say PewDiePie. Right. Today, Mr. Beast. Mm-hmm. So as individuals, not companies, because you have certain companies that kind of trump him, like Coco Melon, and I think there's a few others, the children's channel. So you have like all these like really fun channels that do fun things, like the Lego channel, another thing I can think of. And some of them are reporting news. So I can see how some people would be like trusting YouTube more so than like other sources. I find it fascinating. We'll see.
I mean, chat, if you heard a loud blah, that was me pulling up the chat. Yeah, I as far as Mr. Beast, I actually think no matter what people have an opinion on there, I think he spends a lot of money on philanthropy. I think he's done a lot of he's done more good than any type of ill. There's always going to be complaints if someone gets that big.
Of course,
people are always going to find some negative in it. But man, when people are out there, when you're donating millions in food banks, or you're not just doing things overseas, like building wells in Africa, but when you're trying to make people's lives better, I'm like all for it. I've never seen a YouTuber get so big and have so much money that they could actually change something. When a guy is that big with all the businesses, I saw a video where he was talking about somebody offered to buy out all of his companies for $1 billion. I mean, that's crazy, wow. Man. Yeah.
Excuse me. That's insane.
Yeah, and him turning it down and being like, actually, I think the evaluation should be more like 4.
I mean, you know how he got his start, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, I remember.
It's fucking brilliant. The first money he makes, he gives it away. I mean, what is more captivating? Because every person watching that video at the time, 12 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever it was like, well, that could have been me, and I want to follow him. What if it's going to be me? It's like he became the lottery. He became the YouTube lottery. Well, I could be the next 100 people that he takes on this little show of his, and I maybe will win the Lamborghini or the jet or the house or the car, whatever. It's just genius. And I remember somebody told me that he tried to copy and paste the same schematic onto his brother or something like that. I think it was his brother, and it failed miserably because there can be only one. There's you can't like copy and paste it, because then everybody would be doing it. But because he was the first, he prospered and he succeeded, you know?
Well, he also you could see how much how well this works. So he put up a video to see how monetization would work for himself on Twitter. How much can I make with a video? Now, of course, this would not work for anyone but him. They actually created a new program where, advertisers could actually select to be part of the video. I mean, just crazy stuff. But he made $250,000 in ad revenue off of that. So what
I
does he
saw
do
that.
with it? Yeah. So he's like, I'm going to give it away to 10 people. And the amount of traffic off of that is absolutely insane. Somebody was talking about the chance to win a lottery. Your chances for lottery are something like 1 in 34. And on Mr. Beast for that first day, it was like 1 in 12. So you had a better chance of hitting Mr. Beast giving you $25,000 than you do actually going out and buy a lottery ticket.
Not surprised. And again, he's repeating. You notice the pattern, right? It's the exact same pattern that got him his first initial boost back, when he first started the initial video. And there was like several other videos I remember seeing. It's the same cookie cutter pattern. Goes to a restaurant, tips a waitress $1,000, and goes on some random channel with one viewer and gives them like a $5,000 donation. And now he's doing the exact same thing. I have this extra 250K that I have absolutely no use for. Hey, I have an idea. How about I just give it away to the first 10 people that blah, blah, blah. It's never going to stop.
Brilliant, to be honest. It works great because, I mean,
Absolutely agree.
yeah, when you look at it as a marketing strategy, one thing that bothers me in new media, short form content, because, I went down the rabbit hole with watching YouTube shorts for whatever reason. I think I looked up something on football and I started watching, and I watched probably 30 or 40 videos. And at the end of it, I thought, I don't know what I watched. I don't remember anything about any of those videos. And I find that kind of disturbing in a way. There's some good short form content out there, don't get me wrong, but we flip on and off subjects so quickly now that we don't intake anything doing that. If that's the replacement for media, if we're going to go to that, we already have a news cycle that doesn't even last a day normally. And if we're talking about, if we're truly aiming for some type of social or political change, I mean, you look at true social movements, they take real time, and in this day and age, it's amazing. You'll have not just the press, but people in general. They're like, hey, why follow something for a month, 2 months, 6 months, and it's like, it takes that long. That's really, first of all, that should be journalism, actually getting to the bottom of a story. But also, if there's a point to it, if you really want to change something, you want to change a law, or you just want to change opinions, it takes a lot of time. You got to hammer those points.
Definitely. And those days are dying if they're not dead already, like you said.
See, I hate that because I feel like, when we look at, like I said, when we look at social movements, true social movements, when people, actually took the streets in March, they did things like nowadays, again, a 16-second video over God knows what. And maybe it had the greatest message ever, but when you, when you blend it in with 50 other videos, it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of same on the opposite side of the spectrum, because when I don't do long form content on my channel, like lives and videos, I post shorts. I have a company that extracts shorts because, I mean, love it or hate it, man. Don't hate the player, hate the game is what I have to say about that. It works.
I think your shorts, though, they're accent points for your long form content, because you're taking, like you said, you're extracting portions of it. So, I mean, it does lead to a bigger point that you're making too.
But I'm also starting, and we're actually in the pipeline of creating some more of those where it's just me on camera, right? So I'm doing like a short video answering questions, but I'm trying to make it engaging. I'm trying to make it to where like people ask me legal questions, and I, of course, I can't give legal advice in 49 of the 50 states,
Right.
but I can give legal advice in Kentucky, and I can generally speak about the law from what I know. And some rules are universal that apply to all 50 states. Some rules are going to be Kentucky only. But I like when people just kind of throw questions at me, and I've been creating these shorts where it is my face, you know. But I mean, there's a good way and there's a bad way of creating it. I think I don't know if you've seen this. I saw it a while ago. I don't even know where it was. It was kind of like a meme, I suppose. They basically tried to outline generations and their preferred social media. Have you ever seen this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I did.
And it basically went like, I don't know if they went as far as the silent generation. I could probably be making that up, but I definitely remember like millennial, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and like Gen Alpha, let's say, right? And it's like, what's their preferred social media? And like Gen Xers are like all on Facebook, right? And then millennials are like on, I think it was Snapchat and YouTube. I know YouTube was in it, and YouTube was also in like several others. And then Gen Z is like exclusively TikTok and Snapchat and nothing else. That's where they get their information. That's the social media that they parade, and everything else is for the boomers. And then like Gen Alpha is just like TikTok and something else. I can't remember. But it's been a while, so I might even be. But some of these are like YouTube for sure. For the millennials and the Gen Xers, and then Gen Z and the Gen Alpha. TikTok dominates, no question, because like you said, it's probably insulting, and I'm sorry that I'm not sorry, but I call them pigeon brain information, right? Because you don't need to be like, you don't need you need the attention span of a goldfish, of a pigeon, to take in this 15-second, 20-second, 30-second video, and
Right.
that's it.
I think it was interesting seeing all of that come together. You've seen it in a few trials. We've seen it in any of these monster trials where every platform, again, they disseminate information, and it goes all the way down to short form, but it all leads back to, watching trials and actually informing the public on something. Now that is a fascinating thing. Every now and then, you have something that hits, whether that was again, a Depp trial or a Rittenhouse, or there's been a few other ones as well.
Do we have anything like, I don't want to say super big or even mildly big. I'm afraid, like, choice of words here, but like maybe chat can also help us out. Like, what trial are you looking forward to, or what sort of, like, I'm sure Koberger is going to be at the top of the list, so I'm just going to go ahead and say that one. Everybody's waiting on Koberger, the quadruple alleged murderer, which I think everyone suspects him to be the culprit. What else are y'all looking forward to? Like, what sort of trials are coming up in 2024 that you're like, I cannot wait to see this? Or like the Zachariah Anderson retrial, if it's going to happen. Sarah Boone, people are saying. The Rust trial, of course. I mean, Alec Baldwin.
That whole Baldwin thing. I mean, after his indictment that rolled in, so you have the armorer, and then you have him potentially facing some kind of ramification. And a lot of people will say, well, these people may never face justice, but it's happened in the past. We actually now, as a smaller, more independent director, but still, I think it was about 10 years ago, there was a director that took his film crew onto private property and onto railroad tracks, and he ended up getting someone killed doing that. And he went to jail for it, but on top of that, he ended up not being able to be in charge of safety for any type of film going forward. So he tried to make movies And he ended up getting in a lot of trouble for that. He when he looked at the ruling, he thought, well, I can make something as long as I'm not in charge of safety. But no, they considered him in charge of safety just because he was making movies. And that, like I said, that could be fascinating. Not necessarily with Baldwin going to jail, but what are the stipulations could come with that?
I think it would be. I forgot about that one. We even talked about it, but yeah, it just fell out of my head. I think Alec Baldwin is probably going to be the biggest so
Yeah,
far. I mean, anything could
so far,
happen,
yes.
but yeah, as we all know.
Well, that Jonathan May, it happened fast. I thought I mean, that was a fascinating flare up of because when you look at that, he's part of the MCU. He's a big name there, and then the evidence itself, he didn't really look like the aggressor in that situation. There was a lot of stuff. Now, when he went to trial, with a domestic violence charge anyway, typically you're not going to go to trial. If he demands a trial, they're going to go all out, and more than likely you're going to end up in some type of conviction. That's just the way those trials typically go. But when you look at the evidence there was a lot of questionable stuff. I personally, when I looked at that, I didn't feel he got justice. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion on it. I didn't follow it close enough, but
I didn't cover it. I regret not covering. I was I was watching, but the way everything just dumped all at once, because it's one of those quick flare up trials. It I wasn't surprised that he went out and he tried to salvage his career. Of course, he's gonna do anything that he can, and if he's found guilty in that, I mean, obviously, in this day and age, it's not like 5 years ago that he could survive a domestic violence conviction. These days, he's gonna get dumped by, especially the MCU. Maybe something smaller they might have kept him around in, but Disney, MCU, no way
mm,
whatsoever. So
too
yeah, I
much bad
wasn't.
press. Yeah.
Yeah, terrible press for it, and that there's still a lot of people that are covering the aftermath of that trial. There's a lot of I thought about covering he did some interviews. He went out and did the interview circuit, and it looks so bad. I mean, the way the mainstream media made his interviews it looked like something out of The Boys. I don't know if you've ever watched any of the show The Boys, but they make fun of press and damage control, and that looked like, I mean, it just looks so bad the way they put it together. So I'm curious. I've never sat down and watched the entirety of that. I thought about doing it live.
I don't think I have. For some reason, the sequel to Jackass comes to mind. That's not it. That was like what was that called? Do you remember? It had something boys in it, like the Cowboys or the Bad Boys. Like I forget.
I don't remember. Now this is like it's a very adult themed. I'm going to say, first of all, I'm not
Mm.
recommending anyone with, especially kids, watch it, but it's a superhero kind of what superheroes would look like if they truly existed. Corporations backing them, and the reality versus the PR fantasy. We get the PR fantasy of the Justice League versus the reality. These would be horrible people. They could do anything that they wanted. It'd be drugs, copious amounts of sex, and everything else.
Yeah, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
So, but I mean, they make fun of a lot of the social, like the social situations that we see, and again, they make fun of damage control because they've got to get their soups out of it all the time, and it looked. I mean, again, it looked like something out of a parody show.
I think that would be interesting. Like somebody in the chat, Bessie Knox asked, "Do you think that Alec Baldwin is going to get convicted after the gun was broken by the FBI while they were testing it, and then later they reassembled it?" If we learned anything from like the Murdaugh trial, and speaking of damage control, by the way, that I mean that reputation is unsalvageable. For example, Murdaugh.
Mm.
I mean, at this point, even Alec Baldwin, I don't think, even if he gets acquitted or if he gets probation, there is no coming back from it. That's it. His career is over. And if we learned anything from the Murdaugh trial, to answer your question, Betty, I think that anything is possible. I mean, up until Murdaugh, I remember Danny on Direct and I were both watching the verdict live, and we're like, "Oh, this is a slam dunk, not guilty." Now, this is before we knew about Becky Hill's involvement and all of this, and her stirring the pot, saying to the jurors, like, "I know she's guilty, or I know he's guilty, so just don't worry about the evidence," basically. Which is another thing. I'm still waiting on charges against Becky Hill. I met her, sweetest lady in the world, but corrupt as fuck, as we fucking learned later on. But if there's anything that we learned from that trial is that anything is possible. Jurors can vote with clear evidence to the contrary. And I've had trials like that myself in smaller counties. Like this is going to be in LA County, I imagine. I don't know where the actual incident took place, like the physical shooting of the shooting of the shooting. Okay, right. Pun intended, on the set. So which county are you in? What kind of population are you going to get? What sort of jury are you going to get is going to play a huge factor. Because I've had cases in Jefferson County where Louisville is, a much higher per capita, more educated populace, generally speaking. And so they are more likely, in my experience and seeing the Murdaugh case, for example, they are more likely to listen to the evidence and to go and actually listen to closing if the lawyer is doing it right and go, wait a second, I don't believe that I think he did it. I think he did it. But the lawyer just said, legally speaking, they must have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. I do not believe that they have enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Therefore, I am voting not guilty. Now, talk about a leap of logic, right? And most people who cannot do that leap are going to vote guilty because I think he's guilty, therefore he's guilty. I don't care what any stupid lawyer said or what any of the evidence is or what I interpret the evidence to be. That is a huge problem, and that is sometimes the lawyer's fault for not going that extra mile and explaining to the jury that your job, you must acquit. The glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. If there is not enough evidence, despite your personal beliefs, that you think he is guilty as all fucking sin, but if the prosecution has not proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt, you must acquit. And that is a huge leap. And a lot of people are not able to make that leap. And we saw that in the Murdaugh trial with, again, some qualification, Becky Hill, cough, cough. But I don't know. We'll see with Baldwin. I guess we'll see.
I think with reputation, okay, there's a perfect example of reputation versus trials. Kevin Spacey, 2 trials, was found not guilty in both trials. And yet, look at reputational wise, that never will come back. In fact, there's a convention that announced in the, I guess the last couple of days, it's coming up in February. He's going to a horror convention, for Seven and some other movie, and the public backlash to that. It's just like you would expect, because it doesn't matter what comes up with Kevin Spacey. And again, that's not talking about innocence or guilty or not guilty, is a better way of putting that. And what the trials found, he has been convicted in the public eye.
100%. The opposite of what happened to what's his name? I forget. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was looking through the backlash for that because I was curious, how I asked people like right after the trial came in. Okay, well he was found not guilty. What do you think about him? Again, he got in due process. He was again found not guilty. What do people think? And people are very divided on a Kevin Spacey. And, I've asked people before too, even asking these questions, people get so mad about it. But like, where do you think your opinion came from? Did your opinion actually come from looking into the cases? Did it come from some type of evidence, or did that name just come up again and again through accusers? And did people decide en masse that he was guilty? Now for me, I thought his defense strategy, period, Oh, it reeked of some real problems, when he was accused, his first thing to do was to come out and say, "Hey, by the way, I'm gay." And it's like, "Wait a minute, that doesn't really work toward what you're talking about, and most of your accusers are male, so, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that no. Mm-mm.
I don't know, I look at that I like looking at trials, and I like looking at the public aftermath just to see if it matters at all, because and with good reason. Like you were saying, people may juries make up their minds for all types of reasons. Juries can be swayed by fame. That's why I like being able to see a trial. That's why I like that Deb trial playing out the way it did, because we could have given a transcript blow by blow, and if you would have read that, if you would have read those accusations, they read terribly. I mean, what she's saying on paper looks horrible, but when you see the testimony itself, you actually get to judge the person a little bit different.
Yes. And it could be taken two different ways. I mean, look at all the Hurt supporters. They were saying like the only reason he won is because of his fame, name, and reputation and all that. But that's pure gaslighting. That is the opposite of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about your name or the decision of the jurors being influenced by your fame, which was definitely not the case in the Depp trial. That was the exception to the rule, I feel, because people are going to be hard and fast sometimes, and we got to be careful to say, well, he only won because he has such a big reputation, and that is obviously the exception. So,
Well, and when you look at that, I mean, honestly, when there's specific types of claims, like Hollywood, when you say, "Oh man, this person's a monster," especially like they're an ARPist, I'm gonna say, they've committed DV. People are like, "Yeah, I can see that. I can see that about that person." Because, we have pretty terrible with good reason, we have terrible associations with Hollywood.
they have a reputation, some of them, yeah. Speaking of transcripts, I have put it on pause, and again, this is all for personal reasons, but we will be getting back into it on my channel. I started reading the UK trial
Mhm.
transcripts. And by the way, one of the reasons why I had to take a break is, let me tell you, Tug, just real quick, before I don't know if you've been reading in private chat, but I got a dip.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reading the transcripts of the UK trial, which we've been doing on my channel, and if you're not subscribed, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see it live, which will probably be tomorrow, I think I'm going to do another video tomorrow, is so hard. I cannot describe how difficult it is when you're sitting there reading a transcript, because you're reading it in the first person. I'm speaking as if I am these people, as if I am there, because I'm reading a transcript that is literally transcribed of it happening at the time in real time. And Johnny remembering all these events, and it's very difficult for the psyche and for the body to be able to withstand, because I'm putting myself in Johnny's shoes and I begin to feel like him, and it depresses the shit out of me. So I know he's only going to be on the stand for another like a day and a half, I believe. I think he's only on the stand on the first 3 days, which is also unusual. Like, in the US trial in Virginia, he took the stand like week 3 or something,
Mhm.
whereas Johnny took the stand literally minute 1 of the UK trial. So there's so many stark differences. Like there are almost no objections, and there is 107% speculation by
Oh, yeah.
Amber's attorney, and there's no objection to it. It's like, well, I believe you did this and this, so I'm going to assume you were high as a kite and raping everything in sight. And let me ask you the next question. And there's no interruption. There's nothing. And I'm like, how is this a fair trial? So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but if you all want to see it, I already have the first 3 parts. And it's going to be like a 32-part series. It's like 32 videos, because it was 16 days and I have to do each half day as a separate video, because they're like Otherwise, it's going to be like a 5-hour stream. And first of all, I won't survive. And second of all, I don't want to put anybody through that. So I'm breaking it up as much as I can.
I remember going through it. You know, that's why, like with the Kate Moss stuff, for example, you know, all the speculation. When you look at what was allowed in the U.S. versus what was allowed in the U.K., everything they say, and again, just what they say is actually going on. My God, man! And there's also, you know, they have to get on to Heard and her sister about communications during the court. I mean, there's some wild stuff that happens in it that if it happened in the U.S., you can't even imagine it happening in a U.S. trial. You can imagine,
No.
like, you know, there being communication between a witness that's on there and, again, her sister. They're communicating via text, and you have to have a lawyer say, hey, please make them stop doing that. I mean, that's just, like I said, it's crazy. You can see then that decision. Oh Lord, man, I remember that. I thought about going back to it at one time. Maybe one day I might do that, but oh, it was painful to watch play out for real. All right, you want to
Even
plug anything, Larry, real quick? I know you got to go.
yeah, no, 1 second. So
Yep.
just to say this, to play it both ways, to be fair for both sides, there was a moment in the beginning of the UK trial where, okay, Depp's team, Johnny Depp's team, was blindsided by Amber herself and her team, of course, spearheaded by Amber, because she kept submitting statements. Okay. She kept submitting, there was like statement 5, statement 6, statement 7. And this thing was coming to fruition. The trial was coming to fruition over the course of X number of weeks, months, whatever. But the closer the trial got to the actual date of trial, Amber started pumping out more and more of these statements last minute. So the closer it got, the more, like, the shorter the span of since the last statement has been. So I'll explain. The statement number 7, the last statement that she submitted, was literally submitted at midnight. Think about this. Midnight before the morning of trial. Like, trial is set to begin in 8 hours. Who the fuck does that? How is that even permitted? In the US, it would never fly. Discovery would have been closed 3 months ago. You cannot, if you want to submit anything into evidence, you have to ask special permission from the judge with an explanation as to why it took you this long, et cetera, et cetera. And in the UK, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, I forgot about this. Here you go.
Well,
So
his team made some major screw ups too. Like I think the biggest thing that they ever screwed up on, and we saw ripples of that all the way through the U.S. trial, the text messages. You know, dumping 10,000 freaking text messages. Oh my God. How do you end up doing that? You know, they put so much stuff into play. That's why, you know, a lot of people, like, if you sit down and you really think, why were some of the text messages between friends of his? Like, how did they come into play? Well, they came into play not because of something that should have been turned over, but because they turned over every single text message the man had sent for like 10 years.
And that's not even the worst part. You know, it's the aftermath of what the judge said. When I read those words, I was floored. The judge said, Mr. Depp, he's in the middle of testifying, okay? In the middle of where communication between, like you mentioned, between lawyer, you know, two witnesses texting each other. In this case, literally the judge looked at Johnny, and it's in the transcript. You can see him basically saying, like, Mr. Depp, after a lawyer objection, so you are permitted to speak to your lawyer, but only in discussions of the 7th statement by Amber Heard that has just come in last night. You are not permitted to talk about anything else. Is that clear? Yes, sir. That is almost verbatim what happened. It's like, how do you do that? First of all, how do you even allow that in the first place? Second of all, how do you let that statement in? And third of all, how do you control? I mean, again, to be fair to both sides, in theory, Johnny could have been like, you know what? I want to talk to you about some other stuff too, because since I'm testifying, she's going to start asking me questions and whatnot. I don't think it happened, but it opens the door to that possibility to both sides, Johnny and the son's lawyers. it's just bonkers. It seems so, the UK system to me seems like the wild, wild west. Like anything
It
goes.
did. It very much did. I was stunned because I'd never like watched a trial from beginning to end in that UK system. And I thought, my God, like reading through some again, what was allowed in, but also what was allowed that if we would have seen play out, we saw this stuff with Eve Barlow, for example. We saw how that played, and people were stunned by how that came in. Some of the stuff that happened in the UK and was permitted makes that look like playing at the kids' table.
Yep.
All right. Anything you want to say or plug here? I know
So
you got
plugs. Three things. Number one, we are going to do a follow-up on my channel, the DUIGuy Plus. We're going to do a follow-up of the Amber Heard versus New York Marine insurance saga finale, because I thought it was over. We talked about it earlier, Tug and I. And I'm going to do a video to basically catch you all up on what the hell's going on between her and Travelers and her and New York Marine. Okay, so that's going to be coming on my channel. Number two, we're going to continue the saga. I'm hoping to get it done this winter. And I know we still only have like a couple of months of winter left. We're about at the halfway point, but we can still get it done if I get my shit together and just buckle down Dorothy and get it over with. So that's number two. We're going to continue the UK trial, reading of the transcripts with commentary on my channel as well. And number three, whatever else comes up, new trials, previous trials, upcoming trials. If there's going to be a trial where there's going to be a stream on like Law and Crime, I'm no stranger to it now. I probably won't fly to the location. I might. I mean, Joe just went to the Trump trial and looks like he's getting a lot of traction on that, and good for him. I'm really happy for him. I don't want to go, so I'm glad he went. And yeah, we'll be doing a bunch of fun things. I always say this and then I never follow up, but I think this time is going to be the exception. Something's telling me that I'm going to revive my channel. I'm going to try and do some more long form content. I'm going to continue with the short form content. We're going to do the lives on Amber. We're going to do the lives on the UK trial, and we're going to continue doing stuff. So I really hope that you all join us for that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I like to. I'm going to throw you under the bus just for a second, Tug. Unlike Tug, I actually interact with my chat. So, but everybody knows. So, like, it not hating on you, of course, but just a different style. I am a different style of streamer. That is all.
No, I get carried away with what I'm talking about, and I'll interact somewhat, but I start talking about what I'm talking about and don't pay attention. So it's very. I always like the way like people like yourself, you field questions out of the chat. You actually answer, while you're going along, if there's a question about legal precedent. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm looking at, I look at.
You could fool me. You could fool me.
I look at that. I like the mental health aspect because, I've spent, God, I forget how many years. It's been a long time now. I've spent a long time in the mental health field. So when you look at the behavior of certain people, again, not remote diagnosing, but when that came in, like in the Depp trial, for example, it's like, yeah. I understand exactly what they're talking about with that for sure.
I feel that your level of understanding of human behavior because of your past is allowing you to be very informative. And by the way, your choice of words, the way you describe things, you break things down, because I've watched your streams before, many of them. You break things down into their constituent parts in such a simple and rudimentary way that like a 5-year-old would be able to understand what you're talking about. And so that's, I think, is what makes your channel so appealing and why people watch you. So that's my plug-in for you, bud.
Thank you. I appreciate you, man. Hey, people need to tune in for DUIGuy for real. I like your approach. I like your humor. Like the way you approach it. I have a dry sense of humor. You can have a dry sense of humor, but you can go all the way. So it's fascinating to watch, and man, when you get worked up about something, I really like watching that.
Much
All
love,
right, man.
brother.
Yeah, brother. I'll see you later, man.
Bye, Chad. Bye, Tug. Thanks for having me on. And we should do this. Let's not wait another year and a half to do this again.
Yeah, next time something comes up, or just we'll do it. Whatever. I'm going to be doing a lot more shows and goofing off with people, and vice versa. You'll have to come on again, man.
Yes, sir. You got
All
it.
right, brother.
All right. Bye,
See you, man.
everybody. Bye.
All right, I'm going to hit a few. There's a few super chats here. Again, if you like this kind of stuff, support that channel. I'm actually I'm on the process of I'm going to say with real life stuff. I had a little bit of slowed down. I also don't like fielding certain questions. So yeah, I'm building back, and I'm trying to find what I want to talk about. That doesn't necessarily mean in the there are things that you could pick anything that's in the day-to-day media and have big hits on it, but that's not necessarily the important thing. I'm going to find things that are interesting. I mean, there are certain things that come up in entertainment media that I think are interesting. I'll probably cover some of that, but the trials that we talk about, these trials like the Clayton Echard, again, that's not a big hitter thing necessarily, but it matters. And by the way, I mean, there was a big thing on that. I'll talk about that maybe tomorrow, because there was a big decision. Well, like I mentioned it in the discussion here, but that motion to dismiss was granted. So it's going to be interesting to see what exactly that means. The sanctions discussions are still going on, but I mean, a lot of people are looking at that like, man, did he win? Yes, he won. I mean, she admitted he won. So, and again, that's the the other thing in that too. These things matter, and you can tell they matter because the media won't have a discussion about them. So I think I think these are things that we definitely do need to cover. Pull up the chat here while I go over this. Give me 1 second. My chat died out. I watch my chat on my phone. I would watch it up here, but I live out in Podunk, and if I pull up my chat while we're actually talking or doing something, my screen will die half the time. So I can't really do that all the time. But let's hit these super chats here. All right, Fallen Hero. What's up, Fallen Hero? Man, glad to see you. Thank you for the gifted membership there. Appreciate that. Angela Quinn, thank you for the 17 months. Finally catching it live with a guest. Yes, I've been trying to do at least one guest a week. I'd like to do more guests than that within a week, but at least one guest during a week. I think it's fascinating just to have conversations with people. I don't want to, when I'm having people, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with those. Some of them are just talking to people about motivation stuff. We've met we've met Larry, but I met him on chats and talked to him, but getting to know him a little better. I wanted to talk to him about his trip. I didn't realize I wanted to know why the hell he's in Kentucky. When I listened to him, like I said, we're next door state neighbors. If you're not in the States, especially, yeah, Larry. I mean, you listen to him, you listen to his accent, like him being there for that many years is fascinating to me because he doesn't even have a sliver of an accent. Like for me, I have you can hear my Southern. That comes out, especially when I say Southern or something, and that's not considered a heavy accent. Someone like Camelot, he's from Alabama, Southern. He has a heavier accent, a different type. But you have people with very thick accents, and it's just fascinating, like I said. But anyway, Nancy. So Nancy brought this up. I do want to follow up on this because I am curious. If somebody could break some of this down to me, mail me on it or something. Because so she asked, and thanks for the 5 on here. I brought this up before, but did you see Aaron from growing up in Scientology get arrested in LA after being assaulted on Friday? I did not see that, and I would like to know what the heck happened there. I would love to know about that. We love your accent. Well, I appreciate that. It's funny. I've brought this up before. I was told when I started my channel that I should possibly do a voice, a text to voice or something, because people with heavy Southern accents, you can't make a channel succeed with that. And I was like, no, it'll work. It'll work. I was just like, man, how many people have been discouraged to the point that they just don't put themselves out there? But I heard that from some very big YouTubers. They would even ask, like, if I had a video that hit decently, they'd be like, "Oh, do you ever?" I would get questions like, "Do you ever find it difficult to succeed being from the South?" I'm like, no, not really. So, I always thought that was interesting, but I appreciate it, and it's done well. I love listening to different accents too. Bad Cat, thanks for the 10 months there. I've seen a lot of child abuse or torture cases blamed Mary J. across the states. Absolutely disgusting. Anyone who smokes knows that this is a BS excuse. Yes, indeed. Now, for myself, I am teetotaling these days. Again, I've talked about past, but yeah, you don't have those. You can that case. What disturbs me about the case? So you're talking about, this is a comment about the case where a guy was stabbed again 108 times by a person. They go in, they take a few bong rips, and it was supposedly not laced or anything like that. That's not how any of it reads. I would like to go into court transcripts and see a little bit more of it, but from everything I've read on it, she also she didn't just attack him; she attacked his dog. And what's really sad about that is there was more uproar about the dog being attacked than there actually being a male victim death in that. More people were upset that she attacked an animal. And you can look at, I posted about that, and there are people that say, well, you know, he could defend himself, the animal couldn't. Or, well, he was partaking with her, therefore. And it was like, man, are you kidding me? I'm not saying either one should have been attacked. But it's a sad world, because if I looked at the reverse of it, I don't think people would be trying to make the case that a female deserves something like that to happen. And nobody deserves it, by the way. Male or female, no one deserves it. But that was blamed on marijuana. And the scary part about that is, and the family actually talked about this, they said they're worried about the precedent that sets, because you think about it. Okay, so this person does that. They also self-harmed when the police showed up. They tried to, you can look at early pictures, you can see marks around their neck where they tried to hurt themselves. But they were saying one bong rip, and they were hearing voices that said fight, and they attacked. Then they tried to hurt themselves. Now, just giving them 2 years of probation and community service, if we're talking about someone having a break to that level, you would think mental hospital. You would think committal or something, right? You wouldn't think like a temporary psychotic break, and then that's just the end all be all. You would think with again, not just an attack, but having a body, having a victim. You'd think that would mean more, and it didn't. Like I said, the precedent that sets. I was talking to a few lawyers about that, behind stuff, because I was asking them, like, what do you think this will lead to? And you already have a lot of people that try to use the excuses of inebriation. I mean, that is a very common pull, but to see it again utilized there, and not to have any. I've dealt with people that have been committed that are not fit to stand trial. I've seen that. I've seen people, that are pretty much lifers in the system. They will always be in the system, because the trial, typically that's what you see. You see a person, if they may not necessarily, depending on where they are, they may not go into a psychiatric hospital, but they will be put into group homes or something, and they will never come out of this system. They'll be at a certain level of care. In Tennessee, if you don't know how that works, there after you have emergency care, and that's where your holds usually stay, and then you have housing. If you have housing that opens up, there are levels, or they're restrictive levels. You have RTF, sometimes called ARTF, adult residential treatment, and that is the highest level. 24 hours. Now, it's not. Most people don't know this too. It's illegal to dope somebody out of their gourd. So you can do it in the hospital. You can stabilize. They can give them all types of medication to do that. But after they get into the community, yeah, you can't do that. You have to find medication that works to address their concerns. But you can't just stabilize, meaning that, you give them so much medication they can't function. Again, they'll do that. That stabilization is such a joke sometimes. Yeah, they're stabilized. They were having a psychotic break. You gave the medication for 8 to 16 hours. They're no longer doing it. Boom, they're out the door. That's a flaw, but that's what happens. But then you get into the highest level. You always have people that are there, that are watching, and again, it is restricted to a point. Now, the doors, because of safety concerns and because of rights, they're usually not locked. Yeah, you might have some type of a door, like say there's an exit near a bedroom or something that may by law be able to be locked, but typically you have alarms on the doors and stuff like that. You may have like a keypad that keeps the alarms from going off or something, but you don't necessarily lock the doors because, again, that's a violation of a person's rights, even if that person is very dangerous in the community. Then, you have a middle level. You have enhanced supportive, ESH, enhanced supportive housing. And enhanced supportive is people that they still have more needs. They're not really necessarily on the track they're ready to get out. They still need what would you call stepping down, going to another level and then getting to that. That's where you find people that have, they'll have medical needs as well as severe psychological needs. And sometimes they'll be in that placement, although insurance companies do typically want people to move. They don't want them to be lifers in a system. Now, again, if they're court ordered, that's a little different. But then you get to the supportive housing. And supportive housing, it's like people being out on their own, except they have a lot of roommates. They have people that, you have house mates or whatever. And they'll have day-to-day functioning. Like they'll learn to do laundry, make lunches, to function, and also to deal with stressors. If we're talking about people that have issues with psychosis, for example, they hear voices, how to distinguish whether or not the voices are actually coming from real people or they're coming from your TV. So again, you may not be able to go out and be a contributing member of society, but you can be a functioning member of society. There's a bit of distinction. You may not be able to hold down a job necessarily, but you can go out and you don't pose a danger to yourself or other people. You can interact and it'd be a positive interaction. So anyway, I know that was a long thing there, but talking about that case. So, Neo Blue, thanks for the 2 months there. Have been movies today. The trailer for Madam Web is so bad. That looks so bad. Oh, it's so sad too what they actually did with that character. That character, they wanted her presentable for audiences. So, Madam Web, if you look at original pictures, you're talking about an older lady. Interesting character. I actually like the character, but I hate what they did to her. But me and my daughter were laughing so hard. What a cringe fest. Fun times. Fun times indeed. Indeed. Cian, thank you for the gifted membership, by the way. Thank you for that. Steph, thanks for the 11 months. Baldwin will be interesting. Yeah, I think the Baldwin case will be Interesting. Again, I feel like prosecutors want something. It depends on what they really want out of it. You know, are they wanting jail time? What do they want from him? Because you notice the early people that just give me 1 second, like my cigar there. The early people that that dealt with I think there was one person that actually was convicted, given or they pled guilty rather. They were given probation. Nothing much there. But with Alec Baldwin, I wonder, are people trying to build a name for themselves? Do they want a specific state of justice? It depends on what they want. So, like I said, it'll be fascinating to see play out. And I do wonder about the firearm from. So this came up one of the comments, and it's come up a couple of times here with the firearm was pieced back together by the FBI. That was something that was discussed. Now, if it was disassembled and it had to be reassembled, the reason that they ended up dropping the charges initially was because Baldwin said that there was an issue, a mechanical failure. It went off by itself. So they reassemble the thing and they say, no, no, no. The only way that this could have happened was. Now, that's going to be a point of contention. That is going to be hammered. And Baldwin's going to have very good lawyers. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays. Vanessa, what's up, Vanessa? Thanks for having Larry on, Tug. Oh, yeah. I enjoy Larry. I think I like Larry. I like his sense of humor. I like listening to him speak, just to be honest. But I like his sense of humor. He has a sense of humor that it ranges. I have a dry sense of humor. My kids. I have a dad humor. And if people like it, if they tune in and that's their thing, they like it quite a bit. But that's a chosen taste, I suppose. And Larry can go from that all the way to I like his humor. I like his style there. And I really love it when he gets worked up about a topic. Rosemary, thanks for the 10 there. Great show, great guest. Been following Larry, the DUI guy, since the Depp Heard trial. Yeah, it was funny. I first read into Larry. His content. So you had to excuse that. I was messing with my cigar and a piece come off. I was like, yuck. But I ran into his content and I didn't realize that was him because it was trial content, and it was his short form. See, when I talk about short form videos, there is a distinction. There's short form content that leads to longer form content. Like what he does with short form, I like it because it introduces who he is, what he does, him taking on, issues within the system. I actually saw some blowback to that. Some people were like, "Oh, these are people with DUI issues." Well, if there's a flaw in the system, there's a flaw in the system. You can't blame the lawyer for looking at that. And he was looking at miscarriages of justice. There are oftentimes, like if you look at the cases that he's taken on, he's very good at what he does, and he finds the holes or the flaws in that. But his short form leads to long form. Now, I like that approach. I don't necessarily like short form content that is just a one and done because it doesn't mean anything to me. Like I said, the other day, I went in. I like this football player, Julian Edelman. I think he's really funny. He was a New England Patriot wide receiver, a Z receiver, and I was never a Patriot fan, but I mean, he was a hardworking guy. He went from like nothing, drafted late, to becoming a Super Bowl MVP. Listening to him, though, he's one of the funniest people out there. So I was looking up something with him, and I ran across I ran across a rabbit hole. I just started down it. And before I knew it, I had watched somewhere between 30 or 40 videos. And I couldn't tell you what I watched. And I hate that because, first of all, the amount of time I probably spent 20 minutes sitting there going through stuff, and the engagement there, it was entertaining in the moment. But that time that I took away, that was time that I could have been doing anything else. I could have spent time, family, of course, but on top of that, I could have spent it for anything. I could have been making content. I could have been talking about anything else. It didn't teach me anything. There may have been some random factoid in there or something, but by and large, it was just a waste. It was a time eater, and I don't feel like I have enough time in my life to devote to just randomly consuming YouTube Shorts or TikTok Shorts. Anyway, let's see what the chat says for a minute. Peter Dinklage had a short form. Oh, my Lord. All right. That's funny. I'm going to end on that one. Tomorrow, like I say, I got some stuff going on in the day. After the day, I'm going to put together a video. Let me show you something really fast, okay? And then I'm going to tune out on it. All right. So if you've been keeping up, or if you haven't been keeping up, I want to do a video on this. I think this is just absolutely hilarious. So the media they're in crisis mode. And Taylor Lorenz put out this 4-minute video pretty much telling you about like the layoffs, how all these places are getting hit hard because the old school media is dying. And I thought this would be good to cover because Taylor Lorenz is a prime example of why the media is not trusted. Taylor Lorenz, like or dislike the libs of TikTok, Taylor Lorenz went to a person's home, used the Washington Post to dox them, and actually went after another lady for the same name, told her mother that she was she was an insurrectionist. This lady was from she had the same name. She was a Jewish woman, and Taylor Lorenz got the wrong person. So she went out, and while this person was visiting, had her kids I can't remember where they went exactly, but she tried to destroy their lives. She's also, she's gone after a celebrity. She's gone after many a YouTuber. Myself, she's written 2 hit pieces for me. One of them was specifically a hit piece just on me. I was like, good Lord. And people don't trust the media anymore because of it. So I thought that this would be a very good video to go over. So I thought I'm going to do a video for in the morning or for tomorrow with that. And maybe that night we'll look at that. We'll look at the Clayton Echard, where exactly we are with that case. Because again, we had a decision come in. There are a lot of cases out there. There's a lot of interesting stuff. But yeah, we'll have a big one hit sooner or later. But anyway, I'm going to end here, folks. I appreciate y'all showing up. I hope if you enjoy the interviews, like I said, consider supporting the channel. Share, whatever. And again, if you want to back or something, ThatUmbrellaGuy.com. We have merch, and you can become a member. That whole jazz. I don't want to pump that, but if you do want to support it, definitely do. All right, but anyway. I'll leave you at this. Oh, wait, I had a re-arrive. Thanks for the 2 there. Chewing gum for the eyes. Easy to just zone out. Indeed. That's exactly what that stuff is. That is exactly what it is. But anyway, we'll call it here. Appreciate you, folks. I'll leave this one up. See ya.